In my last video, I explained why it's a myth to believe that getting the life we've always wanted will make us happy at last. Because of hedonic adaptation, we get used to anything. We get used to the good things in our life and we get used to the bad things. So what happens to us doesn't generally change our happiness set point very much. How happy you usually are is probably how happy you'll be in the future. But there's one moment in time when we think we have beaten the odds. It's when we fall in love. Those first few weeks after you've fallen for someone is heaven, right? You feel like you're walking on air and the sun is shining. Nothing can bring you down and the road ahead is paved with rainbows. And you've never felt this way before. And it's all because of him. He's changed your life. He's the reason you can't stop smiling. He is your happiness. And once you've tasted heaven, there's just one more thing you've got to have. You've got to have him forever because he's the source of all of these good feelings. So if he leaves, all of those good feelings go away. And without him, the world is cold and gray. It's routine and mundane and meaningless. And you can't go back to that, not after this. Savor that experience while you can because it is beautiful. It is breathtaking. It creates the kind of memories that can keep you warm for a lifetime. But it doesn't last. Even if you stay together, even if you stay together forever, you will never feel exactly like this again because this is the honeymoon period. So much is happening. You're discovering one another. You're taking emotional risks. You're coming to trust one another. Everything is new, but there can be only one first time. Our mistake is believing that that first time has shifted the world on its axis. We want to believe that it will always be like this from now on out, this intense, this passionate, this joyful. Except, of course, those intense feelings do fade. They morph into different feelings, feelings of affection and attachment, feelings of reliance and trust, feelings of irritation and frustration. If a couple doesn't have a lot of relationship experience, they might assume that the love is fading. The stars in their eyes have gone and the relationship has become work. But in fact, this is the most important time in a relationship because it's the time when we see each other for who we truly are. And we see the relationship for what it truly is. And we can finally make a clear-headed choice. Is this really what we want? Hi, I'm Amy Waterman. I am a love expert here at yourbrilliance.com. And in this video, we are going to look at happiness in relationships. Is it the point of relationships to make each other happy? And if you're not happy, then what does that mean? And in the process, we'll be hearing from a Hollywood couple who saved their marriage by giving up on the quest to make each other happy. Most people enter into relationships because they believe that they will be happier with each other than they've ever been before. But as most people find out through hard experience, relationships don't always make them happier. In fact, sometimes relationships make them less happy. They spend so much time trying to manage the relationship that they end up miserable. We all know the statistic that half of marriages end in divorce, but we don't often talk about the number of relationships that end up in a breakup. It's far, far higher. Matchmaker Helen Chen claims that 85% of dating couples end up breaking up, but I would say that's a very conservative estimate. If you fall in love, chances are it won't work out. That's just the numbers. So what does that mean for us, right? If falling in love will most likely end in heartache and despair, then why do it? Is it just a gamble, risking your heart over and over again on the slim chance that you'll find happiness with someone? Now, to make matters worse, even if everything works out perfectly and you end up married and that marriage ends up lasting, you can't count on being any happier than you were before. That's hedonic adaptation for you. So if relationships aren't about making each other happy, then what are they about? What do you think? Relationship counselors have long known that there is more to love than being happy together. If you gauge the health of your relationship by how happy your spouse makes you, then you will be divorced as fast as you can say, I do. I am so grateful to the actor Will Smith for bringing this conversation into the public eye. In his recent memoir, he confirmed that he and his wife Jada had had some rocky times in their marriage. And once, after a disastrous argument, he told his wife that he quit the job of making her happy. He wasn't even going to try anymore. And he wrote, "We agreed that Jada's happiness had to be her responsibility, and my happiness had to be my responsibility. We were going to seek our distinct innermost personal joys, and then we were going to return and present ourselves to the relationship and to each other already happy, not coming to each other begging with empty cups, demanding the other person fulfill our needs." We felt this vampiric relational model was unfair, unrealistic, destructive, even abusive. To place the responsibility for your happiness on anybody other than yourself is a recipe for misery. Now, that statement caused a good deal of controversy in the press, partly because it lacked context. The real problem was Will was a people pleaser. He was hooked on people pleasing. He worked so hard to make everybody happy that it exhausted everyone. It didn't feel loving to them. It felt like control. Everyone had to be happy in his universe. Now, when you see yourself as the person in charge of making sure your partner and your family are happy, you put incredible pressure on yourself. And if you work and you work and you work to make your loved one happy, and that person persists in being just as happy or unhappy as they were before, wouldn't you feel like a failure? You failed in making them happy. Therefore, you might conclude you're a failure as a partner. Yikes. No wonder Will had to step back, because that wasn't healthy, not for him, not for his wife, and not for his kids. But what do we replace happiness with if making each other happy is not the goal anymore? The press glossed over this part of Will and Jada's story too, partly because co-creating a conscious relationship isn't exactly salacious. Conscious relationships are relationships that are entered into with a lot of care, clear intentions, and lots and lots and lots of communication. You don't set yourself up to lose in a conscious relationship. You don't promise to make each other happy forever, because that cannot be done. What you do is you set an intention to co-create a beautiful life together, one that is flexible and resilient enough to bend rather than break when times get tough. Through constant communication, you update your vision of what you want your life together to look like. You don't stick to the plan you set back when you got together. You reassess and you adapt to your changing needs as people and as partners. Now, this process of co-creation takes the focus away from whether both of you are happy, and it turns it on the pleasure and work of creating something mutual and meaningful that can stand the test of time. So you deserve a relationship in which you are happy, but you aren't owed a relationship that makes you happy. Not all of us can be Will and Jada, right? But all of us can be more conscious and intentional in our relationships. What are we asking of each other? Is that even reasonable? What are we creating together? And are we creating that consciously, or have we just somehow ended up here? I wish for you a beautiful journey of exploring what makes you happy and what you can create in partnership with a man you love. And if you are interested in this idea that you can take your own pleasure into your own hands rather than outsourcing it to someone else, then you will love the lessons I share in my book, The Pleasure Principle. I'll include the link to that below, and I will see you next time.